that are student-oriented, but teacher-controlled, teacher-driven. So, as Sarah just pointed out, you can go ahead and see how many students are connected in your class. So we only have 8 students right now connected. But the nice part is that I can go ahead and start the presentation, and that code will still stay on the screen the whole time. So if you're not logged in yet, you can still catch up. One other nice feature about this that's a little different than like handing out PowerPoints to your students is that during that time, students can go ahead and keep looking ahead and write down the notes, and then they don't have to pay attention. Whereas with Pear Deck, I completely control how the pace of the PowerPoint, how everything's going and stuff like that. So students can't look ahead. They're always staying on the same screen I am. Okay, so this is a Pear Deck on Pear Deck. I'm James Golden, Bridget, and Sarah. I'm not those two, but they're right there. Okay, so to start off, I wanted to show one of the features about Pear Deck, which is its interactiveness. So this is a really awesome example. In your groups, you can go ahead and write down the answer to, or type the answer to this question. What do you wonder about Pear Deck? And so all you do is you click on it, and it'll allow you to start answering. As you can see, it doesn't immediately show your responses to it. I can actually access that on the teacher side. And the best part is that also they're completely anonymous. So I asked to do it in the groups, but I see people are already just responding anyways, so it'll be okay. So then at any point in time, I can go ahead and say, all right, let me just go ahead and show the responses. So how could this be used in a high school English classroom? Can students see the other answers? So again, as I just said, it's completely anonymous, except that, I mean, I can show it on here, but I don't know who sent this in, and that's okay. Is this the same as Kahoot? I don't think so. How easy is it to use? Is it free? So hopefully we get to all of your questions by the end of it, or answer all your questions by the end of this. All right.
So why is Pear Deck effective? It's effective because it allows students to interact directly with it. Like, you're just not sitting there listening to someone go on and on with a PowerPoint. Like, you're actively engaged. If the question is prompted, you can answer the question right there. It's also helpful because, like, if you were a teacher and you want to gauge your students on how they're doing, you can ask the question through Pear Deck, and you can instantly see all the responses rather than, okay, having students write down on a piece of paper, then you collect the paper, then you look it over. Like, it saves, like, a lot of time.
All right. So this is something you can answer individually. This is a stress check. We're learning a lot about different technologies. Some of them you may have never used. And so some of you might be feeling like, oh, this is awesome. I'm in a really good space right now. And then others are probably like, oh my gosh, I can't handle this. Please help. So go ahead and answer individually. There should be an icon that pops up that you can go ahead and drag where you are feeling. And I'll give it a few minutes to see the responses. Alright, so yeah, so we're a little all over the place, but it's good to see a lot of people closer to this side. So one of the reasons why I really like, oh my gosh, alright, one of the reasons why I really like Pear Deck is that it's pretty cool to think about other parts of the classroom besides just the actual material that you're learning. You know, it's always important to think about how comfortable your students are, how they're doing for that day. If everyone's having a really rough day, maybe they had 3 tests before, you know, you might want to take it a little bit easy on them. Or if they're having a really good day, you know, use that to motivate the classroom to keep going. So that's another really important feature about Pear Deck.
Alright, what are the other uses for Pear Deck? So obviously teachers can use Pear Deck as an interactive presentation. Like Sarah said, helps keep students engaged. I like that the teachers can control when you participate. So versus like a Kahoot where you're just on your phone constantly. Right now, you're not participating. So if I were to see a student on their phone typing and they're saying, oh, well, I'm participating. No, you're texting your friend. This isn't a participating slide. So that's nice for teachers to use. Pear Deck can also be used for business conferences and meetings. You can add as many people as you want or as few people as you want. And the code stays up the whole time, so if some people slide it late or something like that, it's no big deal. Participants can't read, or they cannot read the screen. They can follow along on their phones, so they can look at their phones and you know it's going to be that, or else when you exit out of it, you'd have to retype the code and we can see, oh, we have one less participant, so you know what's happening during the presentation. It also allows the speaker to easily receive feedback from large groups of people, so like the slide that James just had. Maybe you're starting and you do a stress check towards the middle of your presentation. You see people are completely lost, they have no clue what's going on, so you go back, reteach it, explain a little bit more, and then redo the stress check. Oh, well now I'm feeling better, or I'm still a little confused, but we'll answer those questions later. And then the next slide. I like that it's collaborative, so for example, if like an advertising company or like a creative company needs like a new slogan, they can use Pear Deck to control the responses. So maybe you have that one person in their office that does everything, everyone loves them, it's great, but you have some ideas that you want to share too. Pear Deck has it so it's completely anonymous and that everyone can see it. So you can share your idea and then the presenter can share their responses. And then they can go through one at a time through all of those responses. So your voice gets heard just as much as the other person, even if they're louder than you. Oh, I have one more thing to say. Another thing I like about Pear Deck is that you can use it no matter where you are in the classroom. So maybe you're in a huge lecture hall and you're sitting in like the very back row or like on a balcony or something. You can still see it on your computer screen just as much as if you were in the front row.
Alright, take a 1 minute stretch break. Stretch it out. Okay, so that's another really effective feature of Pear Deck. Oh my gosh. That's not Pear Deck. Is that it's always reminding you as an educator to throw in these breaks for slides, throw in stuff like the stress check, throw in the other aspects that you might not be thinking about when you're writing a lesson plan. And so, you know, it's so important to consider student needs in mind, and when you're doing something like this, it's super simple to break through.
So what are the pros and cons of Pear Deck? So pros, it encourages collaboration among students. It's interactive, as we said, and I like the mental health awareness aspect because again, you get to take those stretch breaks. You can see, you engage like how you're feeling. It keeps the class focused, so you're not always like you're not zoning out. Again, you're actually engaged in the material, and it's easy to follow along because you can control like where you are in the slides. And then the cons, it's not accessible in all places, so maybe your school isn't that rich and they don't have access to a lot of the technology, or they have like a ban on cell phones, so you might not be able to use that. Again, technological distractions, someone might be like texting instead of actually doing the work. And there is a little bit of a learning curve because you do gotta figure out like how you can put in the programs in the slides, and then your students have to figure out, oh, how do I do this?
Just to reiterate that point, Pear Deck is free to use as educators and as students. However, if you're not on a one-to-one system or you have students who may not have access to something that has internet on it, then it's not as accessible, or it won't be as interactive in that case. So, just one more slide saying, do you find this to be more effective than pen and paper? Alright, so we got a lot of people leaning towards over here. We got some people in the middle, undecided yet. That's okay. Alright, so we came up with this slide, and basically we think it is in some cases and it is in others. We kind of already touched a lot about this, but some reasons why it may be more effective: you don't need to distribute materials, it's always just right there, so it saves some time. Students can follow along, and it's interactive. And one thing I really like about it is that it has different ways of being interactive. You don't always have to type your response, you don't always have to slide your response. Sometimes it even encourages you to draw a picture of your response instead. And that's really important to help meet the needs of all students who might learn a different way. At the same time, it can also be distracting, sometimes having your device out, following along with that. Again, not everyone has device, and not every school has access to give everyone devices, and it can be confusing at first when you are using it for the first time as a student, because I know I didn't use this until I was in college, so like when I saw it the first time I freaked out a bit, but now that I've had it under my belt a while, it's pretty good.
One more thing to jump in with being effective, I found, and the more that I thought about it, is that Pear Deck can be used as an assistive technology. So maybe you have a student with a visual impairment and they usually need to be up front on the front row. Well, maybe you also have a bunch of students that need to be near you and need extra reminders to stay on task, and so that's hard to balance that. But if the student that has a visual impairment has their computer screen, they can follow along, so they could be sat by the window or in the back or maybe in the middle, and they can still see the screen right in front of them without being in the front row. So you can have that for students that need more reminders, and it gives you a little more wiggle room for groupings and stuff like that.
So overall, does Pear Deck pass the do no harm and 4Cs? We pretty much already talked about this throughout the whole PowerPoint. In most cases, it does pass all of these examples. So do not harm, the only thing that can harm is economic discrimination if people don't have access to all of those same technologies. But for creativity, encourages creative thinking through drawing, text, as well as individual group reflections. It encourages group cooperation, encourages class to think about things together, reflection periods, communication and connection. It encourages students to try to answer things a bunch of different ways. It can be displayed on the big screen or on yours, and it can be read aloud by the teacher. And critical thinking, it also allows for open discussion, like why are we having these answers? Who said this? Why did you think this, etc. And so this is just a final reflection piece. So this would be something I would use to end every class with, is what did you like, what didn't you like, what was easy about Pear Deck, what was hard about Pear Deck, etc. So this would be something that you can end your class with as a way to engage afterwards what was effective about that lesson. So I think that's a really cool part of it. So that's it.